this is the Dejankify my site. I think you should clone it, and then I mean, in the end, you just want to have. I mean, you could just be one branch for your team, but if you want to subdivide the work, you could split it among different people. But that wasn't a branch; that was a completely different repo, right? So now I'm suggesting, because we kind of merged together to be one team, so we have one repo. So we have one repo. If you're looking at the Dejankify my site from FHU that has the Prisma setup branch, did you find that? You should clone that. Yes. So when you create, I want you to see the code that I put in Prisma branch, the Prisma setup. Feels weird for you to make a branch of a branch that's not main. That kind of feels really non-standard. So like this code, I'm going to explain to you and then bring it into main. So I think now you should probably work as individuals. So if you're in, I guess you can clone. What if you just don't make your own branch yet? Just.
I'm so confused.
I mean, it's all going to work out. Okay. I want you to stop me when you see stuff that you don't know what's going on. Okay. Wait. What line are we on? I think I don't want you to do anything yet. I would like you to take some in, and then you'll be at a better place to branch. But yes. Yes, pay attention and learn. That's what I should have led with. Why are we importing crypto? Let's come to that when we see it. I think it's so that I can get truly random numbers. It's to get better random numbers. Good question. So there are several things here that are specific to this project. Right? This is the task that I'm going to do. I would like to download. I would like to go to a URL, find all of the images, download all the images, figure out what are the width and height and file size of all the images, create a small 200 pixel wide thumbnail of all the images, and then send all that information back to the client. So this way the client can see. So I'm imagining if I were showing a report on you've got giant images you need to make smaller, this would be like the first couple steps in that. A thumbnail is a smaller version of the image. So this way, when the user downloads, like I want to show them what the image looks like so that they'll recognize it, and then show them, say, hey, this image, which I've made 200 pixels wide, and therefore it's a really small image, I'm going to show it small. They didn't have to download this gigantic image to show it small. But I would have to manually, programmatically resize the file.
Ones that are really long versus, because if you shrink it down to like 200, it'll really like squish.
Right, I'm just going to make it 200 pixels wide and scale whatever the height to be. And that's really just so I can show the user, this is the image I'm talking about. The user they really may need an image that's 1,000 pixels wide if they're showing it full screen. So I'm going to let them, I'm kind of doing extra work here, but let them decide. But I know they're going to need to see it. Okay, so that's the overall job of this. Does that make sense? So it's not exactly one of the tasks that I said, but it's really close to it. And it's very much similar to the alt tag thing. It's more complicated than the Lighthouse thing. Okay, Cores is a middleware we want to use that's going to allow us to interact with different clients. And we also want to use the JSON middleware so that we can interpret JSON in the body of a message. Middleware, that's a good question, are basically like functions that happen between when we receive the message, the request, and we send the response back. And because these are done this high in my code, they're going to happen first. So now I know that any object that was in the body, that was in JSON format, has now been parsed, and I can treat it like a JSON object. Okay, this function is going to take the base URL, like www.example.com, and an image that's from the /images/folder name/image name.jpg. And it's going to put them together to be one long, full absolute path. Does that make sense? I didn't understand it, so Claude helped me here. So this would be the base, and then this would be the image. And what I want is the full, you see that's full path? Because that's the whole path of the image I want to download. If I'm on this page, page.html, and there's something that's called logo.png, then you would be looking in that same directory right there. Make sense? There's apparently several things that could happen here. You could also be on example.com, but your image could come from an entirely different site if you've done it like this, like through a content delivery network, in which case this is the real URL. And apparently you can even do this as well, where you're essentially saying the HTTPS is the same, but if you say // you can go to a whole different server. Anyway, that's some like kind of fine-grained detail of stuff I wouldn't have even thought of. Okay, so this function is going to take in basically a website, the base part of a website URL, and the path to an image, and get me a complete path to an image. All right, here's my giant function. It's called analyze images, and you pass in the page URL. Yeah? All right, first step. This is pretty straightforward. I'm going to call await when I fetch this page URL. So this fetch API allows us by default to send a GET request to some URL. So everybody's going to have to do something like this at the beginning of their thing in order to download this response object. Okay? So the response is more than just, it represents the whole response, not just the code. So if you want to get the HTML that came out of that, then you say await response.text. Have we talked about promises in here? I'm afraid I dropped the ball on that. No? Okay, a promise is an object that represents future work that's going to be finished. So whenever you do a call, like a fetch, a database, a network thing, even a file system thing that might take a while, the JavaScript way of handling that asynchronicity, basically of saying, hey, give me that when you're done, instead of just stopping all work and like consuming 100% of the CPU. Like if you didn't do it this way, it would be like, you done with that? 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 Which every time I'm talking, I'm still using the CPU to be asking for that. I don't want that. So a promise is if I said, hey, let me know when you're done with that. Caleb then gives me something that represents, it's like an IOU, a promise. It's a promise to give me the results when he's done. Does that make sense? So when you're dealing with promises, though, the better syntax is to use await. So when you await a promise, you essentially, but without it looking like it, you're saying don't run the next line of code until you get this response back. But it does that without blocking all work from the CPU. Yes. If you're going to use await to await for an asynchronous, a promise kind of function, then it has to be, every await has to be in an async function. So, and if it's not, it'll yell at you. But this fetch API does this the new modern way, which is with an await. So after the await, the promise has been resolved. If the promise fails, which usually those things can fail, right? Like there are many reasons. For example, that URL is a bad URL. You might not get an OK back. You could get like a 404, which would be something that's not response.OK. So once we get to after the promise, after we've awaited, that potentially long-lived request has been resolved. We have the answer now. So now we can move forward. All right. This $sign is by convention what's used for Cheerio. Cheerio is the name of the most popular HTML parsing library. And by convention, you set Cheerio, the Cheerio like object equal to $sign. So load, you see at the top, load comes out of Cheerio. So that I've already npm installed Cheerio. So the cool thing about Cheerio is with this one line of code right here, you seeing this? I can, on this $sign, say, give me all the images that don't end in .svg. You with me? Claude messed this up and gave me all of them. And then when the rest of the code ran, it destroyed the SVGs. Because SVGs aren't regular, what's that? They might need alts, but they definitely don't need to be resized. And I'm not doing anything with alt tags here. I was doing all about sizing. And because they're vectors, you can scale it up and down and they look just fine. Okay, so because of the magic of Cheerio, as soon as I say $sign, and then this is basically just a CSS selector, I now have an array of image elements. All right. In order to save things on my computer, which is the server, when it's running this code, I'm going to put each new, what's this called? Each new site, each new page in its images. I have to download them to my computer, to the server. And I want to put those in some kind of temporary directory. So I'm going to put this in the current directory, but I want to go up a level and put it in the temp folder. And I'm just going to make up a random unique ID. That's what that UUID means. So it's going to be this is going to be the unique ID for this site's data. So you see it's long, but I know that it's unique. Did I delete all that? Oh. Okay, sorry, I'm going to have to run it again. But when I run it, all of the images from that page will get downloaded into that folder. Okay. This just makes the folder. All right, so first I'm just computing the path of that folder. fs.make directory is going to make the directory. Notice this is awaited as well. Okay, so now for the bulk of what I want to do. I have this giant for loop from 0 to the number of elements that got read in by Cheerio up here. So for every single IMG tag in that HTML text, I'm going to do some work. Just to be super, super clear. So if I were to go to fsu.edu and right click, actually I want to go view developer view source. You see all this? All these hundreds, thousands of lines of code. So I'm going to be able to get out and go through every single image like I'm doing now, yeah? But I'm going to do that programmatically to look at every single image tag. Look at it. I want to look at its SRC and then take whatever's here and download it. A man in a white lab coat stands smiling in front of a large wildcat statue on a paved area. Nice. That's a pretty good alt tag. Oh. Oh, good, because you filled them in? Good. You helped. Oh, that would be a fun, goofy app. Read the alt tags, regenerate an image based on that, and then update the site based on what the alt tags say that it is. Right? That would be a fun game, actually. Okay, so you ready for this? So I'm going to get out the ith image here from that array. I'm going to get the source by getting the, you have to use the $ to convert this guy kind of back into a Cheerio API fully featured object. I don't know how to explain that well. So that you get all of the abilities that Cheerio gives you. In this case, it's getting the SRC element out of it. And gives you a more powerful way of interacting with those elements. So you can really easily say like .children if you wanted to get the children out there. Yeah. All right. If for some reason that image does not have an SRC, I mean, somebody's really messed up. But that doesn't make any sense. But we're going to check that. So we skip the rest of the loop. Okay. Here's that function that I mentioned early on, where we have to figure out, based on this page's URL and what's in the SRC, what is the long, full path to that image. And it's complicated. It's not always the exact same thing in different scenarios, but that function takes care of that. Okay, now for the fun part. We need to, in a try block, because this could fail, we would like to download the image. So now we're specifically fetching the image URL that we just generated. Does that make sense? So on this page, like when we get into this, yeah, this guy looks like it's at HTTPS. Can you see this? That. So that's the image, that's just the image there. Okay? So one image at a time. Apparently this is the right way to do it. We make sure it worked. If it didn't work, then we skip it. We're going to get an array buffer from the image response. And we're going to create a buffer from the array buffer. Okay. Next, we enter our next third-party library called Sharp, which is apparently a really good library for dealing with images. So programmatically deal with images. So this is going to create an image object in Sharp from that buffer, that data, which is just going to be a bunch of ones and zeros. Like, that's binary data. It's not human readable. And then we're going to get the metadata out of the image by calling .metadata on it. The reason it has a .metadata is because it's not just a blob of bytes like it was. Sharp has converted it into its own object that it's managing. Does that make sense? So this is doing like a lot of heavy lifting. All right, so now I want to save that original image. Yes? So what it's going to do here, it's going to save the original image as image dash and then the number 0 through however many images are on the page. It looks like it's determining what the extension is based on the path name and using this path.extension name. In the unique ID folder in my temp folder, because I have to have them locally to resize them. So that they've got to be on this computer if I'm going to change it from 1,000 pixels wide to 200 pixels wide. Yes, and the way I have this set up, we're not thinking about sites. We're thinking about pages. Pages are our unit of work. I didn't want to go to the site level because that recursively gets giant. if you crawl a site and find out all the pages that this page links to and then all the pages that. I mean, that's what Google does. You could use our tool repeatedly to get your whole site done. It's a V2. That's a V2 problem.
That's a pain.
Oh yeah, maybe that's the pro level. Okay, so the first thing this does is it figures out what it's going to call the full size image. Remember, this path.join is just a fancy function that takes a folder name and a file name and puts a slash between them. But on Windows, slashes go this way, and on Mac and Linux, slashes go this way. So you're supposed to use path.join so that they go the right way depending on what environment you're on. If you're on a Windows server, you need it to be a backslash. If you're running it on a good server, then the slashes go this way. Most servers are Linux, right? Because Linux is free. I also need the thumbnail path. The thumbnail path is thumb dash the current number that you're on, and then the file extension. So all this is just to write the correct file names. Now I can fs, that's file system, and write this file that's to the image path, the data that's in the buffer. So the buffer is like storing a blob of bytes. Okay, we got a blob of bytes. We're going to store it to this file using this write file function. So I'm now writing a file on the server, fully saving it. I guess before this point it was just in memory, because you wouldn't have to have it written to your disk, but you'd use a bunch of memory. And what happens if you consume more memory than you have? That's no good. Okay, now I'm going to create the thumbnail. Apparently Sharp has a .resize method. So this is going to resize this thing so that it's 200 pixels wide. I don't know what the second parameter is. We can look it up, but apparently I don't need it. But I can pass in some options here to say fit this inside 200. So that's going to say shrink it down, but proportionally, and don't enlarge it. So if it's already less than 200, don't enhance it to 200. Yeah? Well, let's see what it says. Fit. Usually control and space is the way to get autocomplete. Looks like, yeah. I don't know what outside would do. And then lastly, it then saves this resized image to this thumbnail path. So that's why we had to do that ahead of time. Oof. So now we've created both versions of the image. We're going to extract the metadata from the thumbnail. So using Sharp again to create this object to read in its metadata. I want to have that because in the I'm creating this array of image data information. I want to have information about the thumbnail, the path, which is where is it, its width and height, and its file size, as well as the original image's width and height and file size, and the format of that image. And I want to know, this is the URL of the original image. So then we do that for all the images on the page, which could be a pretty large number, and we then have all the images saved in our folder, the full size and the thumbnail, and we've collected this array of all this information about all the images. You with me so far? And then we finally return an object. I thought this was an interesting way that Claude suggested this. Instead of just returning all that image data, it returns some other kind of metadata. A success, did it work, true. The original page URL that was analyzed, the number of images that we found, and then I guess the path to the temporary directory, which I guess you would need if you were going to show any of those images. Yeah. Okay. So that probably should be split out and not just all be in this one function. It definitely should be. It's really all that image analysis stuff should be happening separately, and all that downloading stuff should be happening separately, not inside the function that is our API. Okay. So in this case, I'm not really using any AI. I'm just using the basic processing. Finding all the images, downloading them all, resizing them. So let me see how to run this. It looks like I'm already in the back end, and I don't really have any front end for this. So I can say npm run. I think if I'm in the back end, I can just run, dev. So that's on localhost 3001. And where did I put that at? You'll note Claude named this, and I don't know how I feel about the name. It breaks the suggestion that we learned today. It called this oh wait, no, it didn't even use that. Hang on. Yep. /API/analyze images. Oh wait, I didn't show you the whole thing. Okay. So the way this works is it's a post message. Post, yeah. And it expects the URL that we're going to analyze to be in the body of the request as a JSON object. We have that JSON middleware, so that's going to make sure that if there is a URL object in the post, it'll be extracted. So if there's not a URL, then we return success equals false and this error. If there is, we create this URL object out of it just to make sure it's a real valid URL. And then finally, we call our giant function, analyze images, get our result object, and then send that back res.json the result. If there's an error in running our code, then you see we're going to return a 500 because that means the error was on us. Whereas if it was a bad URL, we call that a 400, and it's on the user for putting in a bad URL. Oh, there's a lot, right? Okay, so you've got my code. So see if you can get this to run. You're going to need Postman or Insomnia. And then you're going to want to create a workspace here, or a collection probably. I created a collection for Dejankify. Sure, what if we just clone it and make sure my code works on your computer? Would that be? Okay, so when you clone it, you're going to want to do npmi. So you can install all those packages. And, oh, hang on. I guess, since we're just dealing with the back end at the moment, I CD'd into apps/backend. I guess it does npmi recursively, so that would still work. If you do npmi in the root folder, it's the same thing, effectively, because it's going to call npm install, I think, on the package.json that's inside the outer folder. But I kind of want you to just cd into the back end. So let's see. Okay, so I'm in you see this is the folder I'm in. I'm in apps backend. And I'm going to npm I there to download all of the packages that I need for the backend. And then I can say npm run dev to run in development mode just the backend. It's just the backend because I'm in the backend folder. Okay? I am not using that's all in the npm, the package.json. So if you do npm I, you're going to install Cheerio, but that should work too, yeah. But you can't do npm run dev. You've got to do dev:\backend in the root folder. Does that make sense? You've got this script runs the backend from the backend's package.json. The root package.json has this dev:\frontend and dev:\backend. So you'd have to use a different command. Um, yeah, so like cd into apps/backend and call npm. You're running the front end. You're running the back end too. And you got Postman open. I think you click this plus button right here. Plus. And you can say blank collection. So it may be nice to kind of just keep this collected, and you can call this Dejankify. Yeah. Oh, I forgot. I did put Prisma stuff into this. Is if you have Prisma set up, you should be okay. If you don't have Prisma set up, you can probably just comment out that line. I think that's the only line that is deals with Prisma. Or you could do that npx Prisma generate. You got to run an initial migration too. So, do I have? Oh, if you comment that out, Emily, then you're also going to have to comment out the. It's just this endpoint here. Users from Prisma. You got that? Lines 133 to 136, because it is using Prisma. No, the Prisma is only in the back end because that's what does our connection to the database. So it should be. I'm running on localhost 3001 is where the back end's running. Are y'all getting that? If you click on it, you don't get anything because there's nothing at the root of that. And what there is a /API data that returns this. That's just hard coded. And there's like an API health. Isn't there? Which is really just, well, that's worth here. Let me put it over here. So if I'm in my Dejankify, and I want to call this the data, maybe this is like sample data, and that would be at localhost 3001 slash, is it an API? Yes, /API/data. So this is a get, and in Postman, you should get back these three guys when you send a get to that. To run the backend, are you in the root of the whole thing? You just have to say npm run dev : backend. So you've got Prisma issues. Try running that npx Prisma generate. I'm sorry, I mixed the two things together. Is this working for y'all? Oh, is there not a? Oh. Okay. CD into apps back. Those, it's got to be in that folder to do all your Prisma commands. So yeah, if you're getting this Prisma stuff, if you want to run the Prisma commands, you've got a CD into the backend folder, which is apps backend, to be like it's expecting to be in this backend folder with the Prisma config.ts there and that Prisma folder there. What? So if I'm in this guy, if I want to send a, wait, what is that? This is the health check. It's at localhost 3001/API/health for a get. So this sends back a status of OK. Backend is running. You'll see in that. Then this last trick, I would like to analyze images. And it is not a get, it's a post. So this is at http://localhost 3000 API/analyze. Is it dash images? I guess it is. To double check, I'm going to come here and see what route I put this on. Hang on, it's users, API health, data, echo, yeah. Analyze dash images. This guy. But notice it's a post. And it expects there to be JSON in the body that has a URL and that has a real URL. Okay, so if I send a post to this, it's going to fail because there's no URL in the body of this. So in my base, essentially in what's this called? In Postman, the top part is the request and the bottom part is the response. So in my request, I can go to the body. Here I can say raw, and I'm just going to write raw JSON in this body. Okay, so this is like the body of the message that comes after the all the headers. So I'm going to have a URL, and then choose a website. You should start with HTTP. What do you want to analyze? You can try whatever you want to try. I'm going to try the CS. Oh, I bet that doesn't work actually. That URL expands like that. Okay. I'm pretty sure this isn't going to work because I did it before. And what you have to do is they don't count that as a JSON object. You got to put it in a curly like that. You see that? So I've got curly and then URL, and for it to be legal JSON, the URL's got to be in double quotes, and then the value's got to be in double quotes. So now if I send this is going to take a second. It took a second. I got back at 200 OK. And look, success is true. This is my page URL. Apparently there are 7 images on that page, and these are the images. This is like the URL. I think I am not doing this well because you're seeing, I don't know if you can see it, it's giving back the entire full path all the way down to my directory structure on my computer, which is not good or helpful because it doesn't matter that it's in all these folders on my computer. Did you get back something like this? Did or did not? Did you do YouTube? Show me in your code, wait, this is my code. Do you have this app.post? Or look at your terminal here and make sure that it is, is your server still running? Wait, you're in my Prisma setup folder? Prisma setup branch? Oh, no. The main doesn't have almost anything.
Prisma setup?
Yes. I'm sorry. It was a terrible name. I ended up doing something that wasn't about Prisma in there. That's on me. I can check if this worked because it worked under the temp folder. There should be one of these that has images. Oh, look at that. So here's the images on this page. Oh, yeah. And then these are the thumbnail versions. Can you tell if they're smaller or blurrier? So those are the 7 images. Did that work for y'all? No? What images? Those just downloaded when I sent this post message with this URL to the computer science webpage. Can you see that? I almost need to make this in light mode. Oh, look, they have a bunch of modes. Oh, can you see that? So did this work for anybody? Nobody. Well, what errors did we get? Is it a Prisma stuff? Okay, well, let's work through our Prisma stuff then. Okay, so to set up Prisma, I'm going to open up a new terminal. The Prisma stuff is just existing in the back end. So I'm going to cd into apps backend. Okay, so the setup for Prisma is, what are the steps? They're all MPX things, right? Once you, well, what errors are y'all getting? Is it reporting errors? Okay, so Dylan, have you done NPX Prisma in it? No? How many people need to set up Prisma? Okay, okay. Do y'all have an account on Prisma.io? Yes? Does anybody need a moment to do that? Okay. So these are the steps. Um, I'm going to create a new branch from main. Did I make changes here? Prisma take 2? So if we walk through the Prisma stuff from the beginning, would that be helpful? Is that what we're saying? Okay, let's do that. I'm going to leave out my cheat sheet over here. Yes? In Dejankify. But then technically, you only need this once per project in Dejankify. But if you do it in your own branch and have the experience of learning by doing it, that seems worthwhile to me. So I guess for this part, if you want to have the practice of setting up Prisma, yes, make your own branch and maybe call it your name or ironically, no. I'm sorry. I did a terrible naming job. And then you can throw it away. You can delete the branch if you want. Or the one person on the team can keep it and everybody else can throw it away. Is that? Yeah. Um, because it's halfway set up. Yeah. It may be 3/4 of the way set up. Here, let's create the branch from main, and then let's go through it real quick, and then yeah. So now I've put two things in Prisma setup stuff, and this other thing. So I've made it messy. I'm doing two things in one branch. That's not the way I should have done it. So I'm thinking if you can learn how to do Prisma setup, the actual Prisma setup, then you can fix whatever happens when you have issues setting up Prisma. Yes. I think it's just like the last step or two that's gone. So let's see if we can do this. Okay, so I've got Prisma Take Two from that's a branch off of main. And I believe it has no Prisma stuff in it at all. No, it does not. Make your own. You can call it Caleb Prisma from main. So it's clean. It has no things.
So we're gonna make the branch. Go back to
You're going to be empowered to do whatever you want to do after this.
delete man.
All right, not that. Okay,
Drop table.
we have a project already. We've got a package.json. So the first thing we need to do is npm I dash capital D Prisma. So this is going to install Prisma as a dev dependency. Okay. So yeah, and make sure first, pwd, oops. I'm in the backend folder under apps backend. So basically all this did was change our package.json so that Prisma is a dev dependency and it put it in node modules, okay? Um, good question. A dev dependency means It's a dependency in development mode. But when you run the app, you don't need it. Does that make sense? So like, so it'll be in our node modules folder as we're developing it. But when we package this up to put it on the server in the cloud to run forever in production mode, we don't have to include the dev dependencies. So we don't. It makes it smaller then to deploy it because they're just for building the app. They're not for running the app. The next part here, the Prisma client part, is a runtime dependency. So it's going to be installed the other way. That's this third step here. Okay, so the next thing that they say to do is to say npx prisma init. And I'm not going to put this data source provider there. So I'm going to close that and that. Coming into here, npx. Hang on, it's annoying that it would go that wide. Hang on, airtime is killing me. Okay, npx prisma init. By saying, well, let me see. Yes. And this is the thing, these are the directions that I wanted to see that I couldn't remember. So when you run init successfully, it tells you that it created this schema.prisma file, which is that. That's why it did that. Okay. That's what it did wrong to me, that it messed me up last time. Okay. I don't want Prisma-client. I want Prisma-client-js, and I don't want this output line. I do want to use a Postgres database, and I want to store that database URL, which is a secret, in an environment variable, which I think it does go ahead and add one for me. I don't know what database this goes to, but I can't imagine that it's correct. But so this line should come out of your database that you've set up. It could be anywhere. Like if you want to run your Postgres database on AWS, you could do that. And you would have a URL string. That's the magic.
Right now,
The database URL is secretly stored on our computer in that .env file. Even that file is pointing to a server that's on Prisma.io's systems. So Prisma is not just an ORM. They also are trying to sell us a service of hosting our database for us. But we could host it anywhere that hosts Postgres databases. It would work. We could even install Postgres on our computer here and connect it to the local database. That's just a pain. We don't need to do that.
we're not database.
Right. Their free tier is really solid. So if you go to, I have this open somewhere. Yeah, if you go in here to Prisma.io and log in to your personal workspace, your projects. So these are my projects. I can go into this and connect. And they're trying to upsell us, as it were, on some really fancy stuff that they're doing. I didn't want to go there first. But what's in, generate database credentials. Yes, to connect to this database that for me is in this project that I've called Eccentric Purple Narwhal. So, and really then that, you're going to have one database for your whole, I mean, definitely for your team, but really, we're going to want that to be one database for the whole group. Are you with me? Because we're all going to end up using the same database.
Well, that would cost
We're still going to be way underneath their things. Okay. I mean, it's like I mean, you can look it up. full pricing details. It's really 100K operations included, 500 megabytes of storage, 5 databases, no credit card required. So I don't know what they're defining. An operation is an action you take in your database, no matter the compute time. So that would be like a read, write, a create, retrieve, update, delete, any of those. Right. I mean, they would generally scale. If you launched it, then you're going to have a lot more usage of your database. Right. Okay. So we've got our secret connection string that connects this code to that database in the cloud. And I don't. That's what I learned that I did wrong on Friday. I don't want it put here in this generated folder. I want it to go in my node modules. And I don't know, all the examples that work for me, they specify we want the JS client. So the client is the bit of code that it's going to generate. So code generates code. And this generated code that we get to call from our project is going to create glue code that will glue our code to their database, to our database. So, and if you saw like what I did in class today, there's like a user.findMany or a joke.findAny. In our case, it's going to be like a image analysis. Will be an object that maps to a table that they have that generated code writes for us and exactly models our problem. So we really would like to put some model in here, and that model needs to have some name. I don't know. What do you want to do? Like, I mean, user's easy. And there should be some ID, which is an int. Do make sure you get the the Prisma extension so you get autocomplete and syntax highlighting. Wasn't this? You say at ID, and you can say at default. The default value is at auto. It's not. Yeah, not at. It's auto increment parentheses. So we want that to have that. We probably want them to have an email, which would be a string. I think they say you can force this to be unique by saying at unique. What else do we want our users to have? Do we want them to have a name? Is this what your Copilot suggested? I think this one you say at default, like now. Oh, I have to say this is a date time data type. So let's imagine we wanted to store the fact that that's a table. I would like to store the fact that in our system, this doesn't at all model it, but we have like let's call this an analysis maybe. So this is the idea that a particular analysis happened. I'm going to copy this. And this analysis has an integer ID. It has a URL that it's based on, which is going to be a string. I probably do want to create it at. So I want to make that last. And I would like to have the user who like owns this or who created this. So that's the idea of a, what would you call that? Creator, owner. The owner is a user. And it knows that once you use a non-built-in type, then that must be a relationship. And so you got to say at relation, and what is it? Do I say like fields? I think I want to call this owner ID. And I think I'm supposed to have an owner ID here. Did it not need fields? Is references enough? I definitely need this references and say that it references the ID field in user. Why is it mad at me? Oh. Believe so. Yeah, it looks like they want here to say we have analyses. Maybe is analysis a bad word? Report is a simpler word. Does report seem like a better word to you? Or do you like analysis better? Don't care? Reports does seem easier than analyses, so this would be report. Okay with that. So this is reports, and what is reports? It's an array of reports that this user has done. So yeah, Prisma is really picky that you fill in both sides. Okay, so this is a super simple starting point, but it actually probably is where we want to go if you think about it through tables. Each of the things that you're going to do, like if you do a image analysis or an alt tag analysis or a lighthouse analysis, you're going to create another model for that. Yes, that stores your table you're going to be in charge of, and you're going to link it to the report ID that it's associated with. Yeah. So that way you kind of get to have you get to be in charge of your table and your database, saving to that database, as well as doing the analysis, which is what goes in your API, as well as the UI that shows the results of your analysis. Okay, let's finish this out, and I will have to get out of here pretty soon. Okay. Install.env and import.env/config to your prisma.config.ts. So I'm going to take this line, import the .env config, and put it in my Prisma config here at the top. Okay? So this is going to make it so that I'm appropriately dealing with .env files. So I need to also say npm install.env. So I'm installing the .env program, which will read a .env file. You see what they did there? Okay. So I've installed .env. I've imported it into the Prisma config. Now I need to run Prisma dev to start a local Prisma Postgres server. I don't really want to do that. I've defined that. I'm going to do a migration. That's what I want to do. Okay. Migration is a way to encapsulate we're taking the database from this state to a different state. In our case, we're taking the database from there being 0 tables to there being 2 tables, a user table and a analysis report table with to have that specific linkage. As you continue to develop, you're going to realize there are other tables that you need to add. When you need to add a table, you have to create a migration so that, yes, because you got to now keep your objects in sync with what the database actually looks like. And so migration is a way to encapsulate that. So that actually, if you were to like move to a whole new database, it's no big deal because you can just apply all your migrations, boom, 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 back to back to back, and you've encapsulated all of the changes of your SQL data, of your tables. Just when you're adding a new table. That's not migration, no. Our migration just means your schema changed. Your schema changed. So let's add this migration. We want to say MPX Prisma migrate. I say dev, so I'm going to say dev. And then you say dash dash name and then give it something. And I think by convention, the first one is usually called init. After this, I would say what change I made, like added blank table or remove blank table. Notice when it does it though, this needs to not have spaces. The name needs to not have spaces because it's going to create a migrations folder and it's going to, okay, oh, this is because I didn't put in a real database. I think this is here and it's clear. Okay, no, nothing there. So I can connect to this, copy that. Okay, I'm going to try that again. Now it's going to connect to the actual database that's out there, not the one that, I guess it was defaulting to one that was running on my computer, which there wasn't one. So if you remember what was here before, you remember there was no tables when I went to Studio. And look at that. Now there's a user table with nothing and a report table with nothing. There's also a Prisma migrations table that has this migration. And then you'll notice up here, under Prisma, there's migrations folder, and the migrations folder has a folder that has today's date and time and the word in it. And there's a SQL file in it, which if you know SQL, this should look somewhat familiar. I mean, it's commented too. This is creating the user table. This is creating the report table. Creates an index on some guy, creates a foreign key constraint. You feeling it? Thank you, Nima. So this is the beauty of an ORM. We don't have to write SQL anymore. It did it. It still helps if you know SQL occasionally, but this can help you move a lot faster. All right. So wait, now we're halfway there. Living on a prayer. Yeah. Okay. Okay, look up here. Did you copy over your that from Prisma? Okay, and did you add in the .env? Oh, it looks like you might try that. Okay, so we have set up our database so that the database is out there with those two empty tables. And now we need to run the code that writes the code that lets us connect to those databases from JavaScript. You got that too. Is anybody else getting this? Drift detected. Your database schema is not in sync with your migration history. Did you have other? What's in your migration folder? Do you have stuff that's in your migration folder?
I don't know.
No migration folder in backend. And had you already put anything in your backend database? Oh wait, so it didn't make a migrations table. So that's the problem, is that it's saying that it. I would be tempted to try that. Do Prisma. Did you try that Prisma migrate reset? Did it work?
It says all data will be.
But there is no data. It should be npx Prisma. You gotta always put the Prisma first, the npx first. Yeah. I really do want it to create the migrations folder and put that stuff inside of it. So that worked. Okay, I bet it's going to work for you too. So this last part is the part that where we're going to call the code that generates the code that we get to use. So this is going to be that npx, got it? npx Prisma generate. All right. Wait. Did I ever do this? Did I? I don't think I did that, did I? Yeah, I think I need to do that first. Okay. So this is how we get our code connected to the database. So I'm going to say npm I, it's at Prisma / client, I think. Yeah, npm I at Prisma client. All right. Let's see what that does. So that's installed not as a dev dependency, but as just a like runtime.
What is it?
It installs the at Prisma client in our node modules. But I think we still need to say npx Prisma generate. And which, oh, it does that automatically, doesn't it? Yeah, okay. It generated the Prisma client. Yeah, for us. Okay, so now the test is somewhere in our app, like in index.js, we're going to create a new route. So we're going to say app.get and pass in /API/users and rec res arrow curly. And what we'd like to do is get the users from the database, specifically the users table. Yeah? And we can use the find many to do that. So the users is, I think we have to await this. Await Prisma. Oh, there is no Prisma. We have to include Prisma at the top. Aha. It's this guy. Yeah. So I want to import Prisma client from at Prisma client. Ugh. Here's the I understand that's the right way of doing it. What about the easy way of doing it? I think we can just like say const Prisma is equal to new Prisma client. And then, so what they want you to do, what you should do, you need to make sure you should only instantiate one of those Prisma clients. You wouldn't want to do this in all the different files that we're eventually going to split into and have several different objects that are the Prisma client. You just want one, and you put it in a file, and then you export it from the file so that it only gets instantiated once. But now, let's try this. So now I can say Prisma dot, and there is a users. That doesn't seem right to me. I think it should be user. Yeah, do you have user.findMany? Oh, that must be nice. It works for you. Huh. Okay. And, oh, this is mad because I don't have an async function. I need to mark that as async. And then res.json the users. So I'm getting the users from the database and then I'm sending them back. So you could do this in the browser or you could do it here. Guess what users right? Am I still running this? Nope. There's your problem right there. Okay. So when you spell Prisma correctly, you see this is running. That's why I didn't get autocomplete. Now if I do this, I should get back nothing. But the reason I got back nothing is because it went all the way to the database to discover there weren't any users in there. Do you get to this empty array? If you want to make it work, then come in here to your users and create a user manually by insert row, email, nema@nema.com, enter to save changes. This is, of course, Nema. I think it'll automatically get the timestamp and the, it'll get the timestamp and the ID for us. So now if I go back to this and refresh, now I get Nema from the database. Okay, so my challenge for you is to think about what is the shape of the data that you would like to send back to your user interface, and what do you want your user interface to look like? So for whatever your problem is, how are you going to tell the user about that problem? Okay? Whether it's missing alt tags or light speed or lighthouse or I think you should just get the scores for the 4 or 5 things that you think are most impactful and interesting. And I was kind of thinking about it. Maybe our niche is niche that we're helping new developers learn and improve their sites. So in that sense, having a really user-friendly one-sentence description of what does first contentful paint mean? Like you got a 67. What does it mean? Or the overall score is fine too. But like in the same way with my these images, what sizes are they? Like I would maybe it's for teaching. Hey, this one looks really big. This is why this is a problem. Like I would think this stuff we're doing is maybe so simple that most professionals would already know how to do this or have a workflow for it. Maybe I don't know. Thought maybe we could lean into being more educational. But so you get to define what your backend creates. You have to do it, but I'm thinking this is how you could split it apart. What do you want your front end to look like? For how does it send back? How does it show those recommendations or those issues? You can make a fake JSON object. That's what you want it to look like, and then make sure when you send it back, the user sees it. And the structure of that object that gets sent back to the user is going to be highly correlated to the structure of the model that gets saved to the database. So those are like tightly coupled together. You with me? Because you want to save that information, but it may be slightly different if it's JSON object versus a table row. That's not good. Oh, you need /. Yep. Thank you guys for coming and participating. I appreciate you guys. So we'll keep working on this. Let me know as you have issues. But I really would like to see you, like, you can fake out what data you send back, how that data gets saved to the database, how you show that data in the UI.